I'm going to be demonstrating how you're going to set up your lab for the bacteria lab that we're doing. The first thing you're going to do, we'll have materials out here for you. But the first thing you want to do is to label your petri dish. This is a petri dish. Here's the cover, here's the bottom. The bottom is what has that agar, nutrient agar, that's going to be food for the bacteria to grow on. So we want to flip it over so that the bottom's facing up, the side that has the agar. And you're going to make a cross in the middle. And then you want to label what it is you're testing and what bacteria you're using. So I'm using the bacteria B.cereus or B.cereus, and oftentimes that might cause things like food poisoning. So I'm picking some maybe household cleaners, kitchen cleaners, and other household cleaners, the cleaner that we use to clean our desks during the day, to see how that affects this particular bacteria. So I'm going to label my quadrants. The first one I'm going to label control, because we need to have a control group always. I'm going to put the Lysol Kitchen. We have a few different Lysol cleaners, so you might want to label it a little bit more specifically. This is Clorox bleach. And then Buckeye Echo spray. Somebody on an Ohio fan that ordered this? I don't know. You know, the Ohio Buckeyes? All right, so I've got each of my areas labeled just like that. I would want to put my initials on there, the date that you're doing it, 9/21. For sure what kind of bacteria you're using, and so this is B.cereus. You're thinking, that's a lot of things to write. Yes, it is. You can always abbreviate as long as you write on your lab report what your abbreviations stand for. But notice how I'm writing them all along the outer edge. We want this whole area free and open so that we can see when the bacteria grows. Okay? So we have our stuff labeled there. And so the next thing we want to do is we actually want to swab the bacteria onto your petri dish. So we take a fresh sterile swab, just like that. It's a little bit longer than a Q-tip swab. I kind of swirled my bacteria around a little bit, but when I dip this in, try to keep it covered a little bit, and just swirl your swab in there so you can get a nice, good coating of it. Tap the side a little bit before you bring the swab out. Cover it back up right away. And then I'm flipping this over, so now the cover is on top. I'm holding the cover at an angle like that, and then I'm just swabbing over the surface of the agar. And you'll kind of feel it, that it's just kind of, it's like this hard gelatin. You don't want to dig into it, just swab over the surface. Now I'm going to spin it just slightly, and I'm going to keep doing it. It's like you're coloring that whole circle of agar with the bacterium. Okay, and you can kind of spin your swab a little bit too to make sure you're getting it off all the sides. I'm going to spin it a third time just slightly to make sure I'm getting it at all angles and swabbing everything on there. And when we're done with that, the sterile swabs always go over into one of these biohazard bags over here, because then I'll autoclave it and kill off the bacteria after there later. Okay, your next step then is to actually apply your different discs here. These are just filter paper discs, and you're going to actually use those to dip into your different cleaners that you're going to be testing. Now, if your cleaner comes in a spray like this Buckeye spray, I would just say spray a nice little pile of it onto your lab table like that. It makes it a little bit easier to dip into. We've got these little tweezers or forceps, and we'll always have a little beaker that has rubbing alcohol. We always want you to dip it into rubbing alcohol to clean it first. Dry it off, just like that. Pick up one of your filter paper discs, dip it down in there so it gets nice and soaked. Okay. I want to see where the Buckeye one is up in that corner. So here's the Buckeye. Put it right, try to center it as best as you can right in the middle of that quadrant, because remember, we're going to look to see if it forms a zone of inhibition, so you want to make it sure it's centered there. Tap, tap, tap a little bit so it sticks to it. Don't push it down so you're gouging it, but just tap it a little bit. Then I want to rinse this off good, dry it off good. Otherwise, it'll think you're testing rubbing alcohol as your test material rather than a different cleaner. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of this Clorox bleach next. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of this into the cover so I can test it that way. Take a fresh little filter paper disc, dip it into the bleach. Where's my bleach one at? Right here. And so I'm going to try to center it there, tap, tap, tap it down, rinse off, dry really good. There's my Lysol antibacterial cleaner. Put a little bit of that in there. Dip that right in so it's nice soaked there. See, my kitchen cleaner is up in that corner. So I'm going to center it. Whoop. It's a little tricky sometimes. Tap, tap, tap. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of bubbles around it. That's okay. Tap it down. Rinse it. And we still need a control group. Now remember, the control group doesn't receive the factor being tested, in this case the different disinfectants, and so I'm going to just leave it blank. Some students have elected to dip it into, distilled water, so it still has liquid but doesn't have anything with it. So whatever your lab group decides, that's what you can do for yours. So I'm just going to stick this right up into the control quadrant. Tap, tap, tap. Put it down there. There may have been a double layer of things there. And now you can see, because we've tapped it down, they're all sticking to the surface. And I flipped it upside down. Just going to clean this off again. I'm not done yet, though. We need to take some tape here and seal it up, because you will never open this up again, so you won't expose yourself to any bacteria when you go and check it the next day to see what the results are. So I'm just going to take a couple of pieces of tape here, small ones, and you just stick one on one side like that, kind of along the edge, and one on the other side again, kind of along the edge. Because again, you want to make sure you have the view clear. See, there's that extra little control. Remember I said I think I had an extra one that was stuck to it. So I'm just going to pull that out of there for now so it doesn't interfere. And now this is going to incubate for 24 hours. Now B.cereus likes a temperature usually around 30 degrees Celsius. And so we have all of our incubators here. There'll be 3 of them labeled with the different temperatures and the different bacteria of whatever you use. So B.cereus would go back into this incubator, just checking the temperature there, make sure it's okay. But you always have it flipped upside down, so the bottom is facing up, because otherwise that condensation will drip down on it. It might ruin your experiment a little bit. So now you just have to wait 24 hours to see what happens in your experiment.